Welcome to the D.E.A.D podcast. D.E.A.D stands for Desi and Emmy's Abnormal Discoveries, where we discuss all things spooky and weird. I'm Desi,
And I'm Emmy.
and today we'll be talking about the ojo. Let's get started. Okay, so how are you doing today, Emmy?
Well, I'm doing great. Fantastic. Just
Better than
chilling.
last week.
Better than last week. Feeling good. Excited to talk about the ojo because this is a new topic for me. So I'm coming in knowing nothing and just excited to hear what you have to say and learn all about it.
Yeah.
So how are you doing?
Too. I'm doing good. I'm excited too. It was fun talking to my grandma about all this and learning. So yeah, I'm excited. What spooky shirt are you wearing today?
So I need to buy more spooky shirts because mine is not really that spooky. It is a Family Values Tour 2007 was my first concert. Korn, Evanescent, Hell Yeah. I think there was another band, but it's just got this little guy on it and he's got like a fedora and a devil tail. So yes.
Let's see. And I am wearing a tie-dye t-shirt with skulls that have different coffees on them. It has a coffin, and then I'm drinking Cayman Jack Paloma. And it's really, really good out of my tarot spooky glass that I got also.
And it's so cute. And you're going to buy me one, right? For Christmas. I'm going to have to get more because now this is my second shirt I've worn because this is our second time recording. And if we want to wear one every time, I think I only have like 4 more. I'm about to start cycling through these again. So.
Oh, what are you drinking tonight?
Windows. Okay, so what I'm drinking, I am drinking Jameson Black Barrel with ginger ale and a Bud Select. We are double fisting it tonight.
Okay, so today we are going to be talking about the ojo. The correct name, this is what I learned from my own grandma that I grew up with, and this is what I know.
So this is Desi.
Yes, this is Desi. Sorry. I am the one with the Hispanic color heritage.
Desi has the Hispanic blood. Emmy is super white. So she is learning today.
In case anyone's wondering.
In case you're wondering. Pasty white girl over here.
Okay, so the correct name is called Mal de Ojo, or the evil eye. What the ojo is when someone, or you yourself, is admiring something on somebody else. It can be what they're wearing. It could be their hair. Whatever's on them, their eyes. Oh, they have beautiful eyes. Even on a baby. Like, you're like, oh my gosh, that's so, you're admiring the baby. And the big thing about it is if they don't go and touch you. So a lot of times, I'm going to use a baby, for example. So if you see a baby and you're admiring a baby, you need to go up to it and run your hand over like their eyes and stuff just to kind of, you touch them. So if you don't touch them, or if someone admires my hair, I've had that happen to me where I've been in a public place. Someone has made a comment about my hair and I'll be like, I'm sorry, like, can you touch it? Like, I will make them touch my hair. That's how much I'm like, my hair's not falling out because of you. Like, you are touching my hair. So if you don't touch it, that is, or whatever it is, that is when you could possibly give somebody the ojo.
But this is where I already have questions because, like, a lot of people, and I feel like I would be this way, especially with the virus. I'd be like, don't touch my baby. Like, I don't want your grubby hands on my baby. Or, like, I don't want you to touch my hair. Like, some people, it's a big no-no. Don't touch any part of them.
In the Hispanic culture, it's an understanding. Like, we know why you have to.
Yeah, so down in Texas, if you're, like, complimenting someone and they're like, you have to touch my hair now, that's why. But if you do it in Missouri and you try to touch them, there's a lot of, there's gun owners in Texas too, but I'm telling you, in Missouri, someone will probably shoot you for trying to touch them. So, just saying. Like,
well, if you want to get ojo, that's fine with me.
Tread lightly, yeah.
Like, if you go home and get sick, not my problem. Yeah, like I said, like with the baby, you kind of like go like this.
So not like necessarily touching, but you, gently kind of brush over the face with your hand.
Just so you do touch it. So a story with me, I was shopping and I was sitting there waiting for my grandma. She was trying on some stuff. And I was just sitting there kind of with my back to like where the dressing room was. And the dressing room attendant lady, she was there. And so I had long hair at the time. She said something about my hair. She's like, oh, I was admiring your hair, so long and beautiful. And I was like, thank you. And I walked away and I turned around and she was a white lady. And I told her, I went up to her. I'm saying this because I went up to her and I was like, I don't know if you know what the ojo is, but since you complimented my hair, like, can you please touch my hair? I don't want you to give me ojo. And she's like, oh, yes, I've actually heard of this. And so she touched my hair. So that was like me telling her, because she was admiring my hair, to touch my hair.
Did you, and I mean, you can keep going with your story, but did you get any information from your grandma on why that is? Like, why do they need to, if you don't get touched, you get the evil eye? Is there any explanation for why you have to touch somebody after you compliment them?
I'm not exactly sure on the answer to that. That's a good question. I feel like it has something like to do with admiring from afar, maybe like coveting what someone has. And I don't know if touch takes away from that. I don't know. Like, that's interesting.
Yeah,
I need
we
to
have
ask
to
my
look
grandma
if
about
that's
that.
a thing. Yeah, or if
Yes.
there's an answer to why.
Mhm.
Because I just wonder, I feel like it would depend on, because I'm into energy, so
Mhm.
feeling like a good energy, you can pass it on to people, and bad energy, you can pass it on. So if I'm looking at your hair and I'm like, oh my God, like her hair is just beautiful, and I'm like, ugh, I mean, could be really happening in real time. Like I'm thinning out.
Right.
And your hair is like beautiful and like, thick. So I'm like, oh, I love her hair. But I'm like
Mhm.
mad because I'm like, I want your hair.
Mhm.
So like that's a negative. That could be negative if I leave it at that. But if I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, like I love your hair. I'm jealous of it, but like you're my really good friend and I'm really happy that you have beautiful hair. Like
Mhm.
I'm saying like I have good
Right.
energy behind me complimenting you anyway,
Yes.
regardless of touching you, I feel like. But it
Yes.
seems like the touch has like means something. So
It does. It does. And I need to find out like why
interesting.
exactly. But yes, it's stories of bad things happening, and then like I just told you the story of me making this lady touch me.
Like someone has complimented you and didn't touch you, and
Yes.
or you've had something bad happen and you're like, I think
Mhm.
that person told
Yes.
me they liked something and didn't.
Yes. But this is just me.
And I don't mean my questions in any way like I don't believe in it either. I just find it interesting because
Right.
I've never lived my life knowing this was a thing. But I'm like, as some of these stories, I'm like, has that happened in my life? Like, has someone given me negative energy that I've carried with me and I didn't know that
Mhm.
it was related
Mhm.
to them complimenting me or something? Like, would
Right.
that happen to me? It's just something I'm going to think about. Like, now that I know what this is, I feel like I'm going to think about this happening in the future, or even when I meet you in person, which we've still never met
Mhm.
in person. But when I see you in person and I'm like, oh my God, I love your hair. Like, now I know, like, I'm going to have to touch it.
Okay. So that is what the ojo is. Now, like I mentioned about the lady, I have personally had the ojo, and I'm going to tell you how I know when I have it. Now, again, I'm talking about myself. This is just what I've experienced and what I know. So this hasn't always happened, but I've noticed, I guess, into my adulthood, sometimes I will get headaches, and I do suffer from headaches, from time to time. And most of the time, I'll take medicine for it. But how I know I have it is that no amount of medicine will make the headache go away. Tylenol, ibuprofen, whatever will not make it go away. When I have a headache and that happens, I will go to my grandma and I will tell her that I think I have the ojo and if she can do the egg on me. So when you have the ojo, you can either have a headache, have a fever, you can just not feel good, and any kind of medicine won't make it go away. Now, the headache is just what I've experienced. I don't know about anyone else. But yeah, so I know when I get it. So what you do is my grandma will take an egg from the fridge, just an egg you make breakfast with, whatever. Leave it out for a little bit, or you can try to like warm it up with your hands, but it needs to be like room temperature. And then you'll take a glass and you'll put a little bit of water, enough so that the egg yolk can fit in there. And so you take that, and then the person will lay down. I'll normally get like one of our throw blankets, and I'll just lay there, and I'll close my eyes, and I'll just lay there with my hands to my side, my feet, out. And my grandma will take the egg, and she starts off by doing the sign of the cross on my forehead. she'll start with my head and then she'll move down. So it'll go from my chest to my arms, to my stomach, to my legs, to my feet. And she's kind of doing like sweeping motions, like getting the evil out, like sweeping it out with the egg. So swift motions out. And as she's praying, we are Catholic, so she will say 3 Hail Marys and 3 Our Fathers as she's doing these motions. Then when she's done, she'll do the sign of the cross again on my head and on my feet. And so when she's done with that, she will break the egg into the glass of water. And then you wait. You wait a few minutes, let it do its thing. And then when you look at the egg, you will see, if you see like a film on the top, and then you will see an eye. And it's basically like a little like white dot. If you have the ojo, it like a little white dot, you'll see it. Okay, so if it's on top, it's the female. A female. If it's on the side, that's when a guy gave you the ojo. And then also sometimes it'll appear like really bad where you can see like stringy stuff and like the egg just looks really ugly. That means you got really bad ojo. Like someone really
malicious intentions.
Yes, like it's bad.
Whew, the questions are firing off. So when she's doing the sign of the cross, so she has the egg and it's not cracked and
right, it's not
covers that. Okay, so I've seen when I was researching this some things where they have, it's almost like sage or like some herbs that they burn and do that. So there's no smoke involved to clear the energy. Okay. That was the other thing that I saw several different things on what happens to the egg, how to tell if you have the ojo. So for you, so you said it's a white dot either on top of or on the side of the egg, or it's like streaky white stuff.
Yeah.
And so some other things, like the show I was watching This Fool on Hulu, and they brought it up just like 2 days before we're about to do this episode. I'm like, cool, synchronicity.
Perfect.
But they had it where if the egg sank, then you had the ojo, and if it rose to the top, then you were clear. And I was like, I thought there's something about eggs that if they've gone bad, if they're rotten, then it's before you crack it, if it's rotten, then it floats. And if it's not rotten, then it stays down at the bottom. So that's why I was wondering, that was one of my questions, was how do you tell? Which you don't go off of floating or whatever.
It's what
you see in it. Kind of like a message, like in Harry Potter when they're like, it's the Grim. It's like,
yes, because
you see the Grim in the egg.
Yes, because basically you're praying and you're, like I told you, she does like sweeping motions, like to sweep it out of you. So basically you're trying to draw whatever is maybe in you into this egg to see if, in fact, something is in you.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like there was another way when I was researching. Well, like I was seeing some things that said they put the egg in water and put alcohol in it too. So you just do an egg in water.
Mm-hmm. Just a little bit of water.
Alcohol.
Again, this is just how I grew up and how my grandma does it.
Yeah, it's interesting that there's different ways to tell though, because this was the third way that I saw. Mm-hmm. And maybe there's more, but one was, and I guess maybe you get to that part, but I don't know what happens to the egg overnight. You're going to get, this is kind of the transition.
Yes.
So it kind of talks about what happens overnight to the egg and if that makes a difference. Go into that. I'll save my question because maybe you'll answer it.
Okay, so that's what it shows if you have the ojo. If you don't have the ojo, it just looks like a plain egg, and you
have you had that where you had a bad headache and you had her check and it was nothing?
Yeah,
I feel like I'd be a hypochondriac. I'd be like, I have a slight headache, and be like, Grandma, ojo time, let's go.
Yes, it hasn't honestly. It hasn't happened often, but there has been maybe 1 or 2 times where there wasn't anything. And so it could be something, it could be something else too.
Well, and my other question is, this happened a lot to you. Like, you've done this all your life. Is it, could you even count how many times you've done this, or is it just something that's frequent?
I can't give you the amount of times that my grandma has done this on me as a child. I don't remember if she did or how often. But as an adult, she's done it quite often. Maybe I was sick a lot as a kid, and that's when my grandma would do it. I don't quite remember that. Okay, so after you do the whole process with the egg, you're going to take the glass with the egg in it and everything. Don't do nothing with it. You're going to place it under your bed where you lay your head. and you're going to leave it there overnight, and you can either throw it outside or you can flush it down the drain. And after that, you should be better. The end.
Okay, but I got a lot of gaps.
Okay.
So not gaps, but questions.
Mhm.
So first off, I feel like if I put a glass of water with an egg in it under my bed, like my dog Joey would try to mess with it. So your dogs are not
No,
and
she's
get this
snoring
egg.
in the corner. Like,
Okay, but she's a good girl. Like
yeah,
Joey
she's
would
a good
be
girl.
like, I want to get this evil egg.
Yeah, maybe you like put a bag over it or like
Yeah,
cover
put
it or
something over it. So, but when you throw it out, so you said you can either throw it out outside or flush it. So it doesn't matter.
Whatever,
Like,
it depends
yeah.
what you have. Like here, I live in the middle of nowhere, so like I have a
You could
field
just throw it outside.
behind me. Yeah, I could go up to the fence and throw it outside, or if you want to throw it down the drain. Like it doesn't really matter. You just
Yeah.
yes. Within a few, I mean, you got to give it a few minutes or whatever. So basically, what you're doing when you leave it under there, if there's anything else that needs to be drawn out or it hasn't been drawn out, like it can be overnight.
Overnight, it can seep out. Yeah.
Yes, and take all that bad energy, bad, whatever you want to call it, out of you.
Because that was the one of the other articles I saw. It says that some people test to see if it's positive if you have the ojo, if the egg is cooked overnight. So it's like it starts to maybe it gets hot overnight and then it looks more cooked than it did when you first put it in the cup. So I thought that was interesting. I just didn't know if that was involved at all.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it could be different. And if any of y'all listeners have different stories that have to do with the egg, yes, email us, share us a message on Instagram, whatever, because I would love to know there's other versions of this. And my grandma learned it from her mother, and her mother learned it from her parents, especially her father, but like was really into it. She says that like people would come to him for things, like for medicines, so the people would come to him. And even my grandma said that when she was growing up, she remembers people coming to her mom, bringing their kids for different things. I guess maybe for the ojo, like for the egg. She also told me a similar story, like to use a broom. And I thought that was interesting. I was like, that sounds like witchy stuff. But
yeah, a bunch of witches, and these are my people.
I didn't even know about that. I was like,
but I love that. That's like I have questions on that because that was my question with it's like a healing method that passes down from generation to generation. So I wanted to know, of course, what were the prayers? Like what is the step to healing? I guess that's a question I forgot to ask is what is it about those prayers and doing it 6 times? Like what's significant about that of the healing? Is that what her grandpa did? But also my question is, do you want to learn this?
But also like you were asking about the prayers, they have very strong beliefs and think that the Our Father and the Hail Mary prayers are very powerful. And that's why that they say those.
Power in the prayer.
Yes. And I definitely believe them.
But I just wonder, like, do you think about that? And I guess maybe that's a dark question, but
I feel like you have to believe in the prayer, like I was telling you, and this is what I believe, and this is what I have faith in.
Duh. Like, you need to believe in the ritual that you're doing.
Right. Yeah. If you want this ritual.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, if you, you can't sit there and, oh, yeah, I don't believe in God, but like, you're sitting here praying and I hope that will help. Like you have to believe in God in these prayers to receive the healing, is what you're saying.
Yes. I believe in this method and I believe in the prayers. I feel like the method with the egg.
Yeah.
So this is just what she grew up learning, what her mother learned from that. And so this is Mexican culture, but I feel like a lot of Mexican culture is Catholic. So a lot of it is intertwined, and that's where the prayers come in. So that's why my friend was asking me, I said, I don't know about doing it on a whole house. I feel like you would have to get a priest to come and bless your house. This works on animals too, in case anyone's wondering.
I saw that. Yes.
My grandma's done it on Harley.
Not Robin? Robin doesn't need it?
No, this was pretty early on when I had them. Harley was really sick and I had taken him to the vet and whatever they gave him wasn't helping him. And I was just, freaking out. I made my grandma, she's like, I don't no. And I was like, just do it. Like, just do the egg. And so we made him lay down, and she did the same thing with it. And he had ojo. He had ojo, and he got better after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I got chills.
He did. I was so worried, like, because he wasn't getting better.
Puppy.
That was like a long time ago. Harley's about to be 12 next month.
Oh, good old boy.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it works on them too.
Well, and that was one of my questions I saw about kids and pets. I was reading something about the color red. Children were wearing, like, they were putting red bracelets on children. And I can't remember if they said left hand or right hand. Like, I think it mattered what side, but it was like a red bracelet was supposed to help in repelling this. And I know one thing we looked at was, how is this related to the evil eye? Because it's trendy now to see that, the little blue eye. They got. So I just wondered if there was anything about that, like if there's anything you can wear, like an amulet to protect you in any way. No.
Okay, so I have a couple of stories. So one is about my mom. This has to do with the ojo. When my mom was younger, she had really long, wavy, curly hair. My mom was very attached to my grandpa. She liked to go everywhere with him. Of course, that was a different time, in the 70s. When she would go somewhere with my grandpa, she liked to be right next to him. And I'm pretty sure she was super young because I believe she was like standing next to him in the car. Like, you could just see this like long hair. One of the neighbors saw them and thought that my grandpa was with like another woman, because you could just see all this hair. Like, you couldn't see like who it was. The neighbors saw that and saw the hair, and after that my mom's curls fell out and her hair started thinning out. And to this day, like, my mom has thin, straight hair. Like, her hair just got thinner and thinner.
Like, she got it bad.
But it happened right after that, slowly. Didn't realize it was my mom and, his daughter.
It's his daughter,
and, yes, was thinking negatively from afar and with her hair, and didn't go touch it. And my grandma was like, it never occurred to me. But she's like, I guess maybe I wasn't thinking at the time, or she's like, I should have made her touch
to do the ojo. Well, but so if she didn't touch it, and then if your grandma would have done the ritual right away, would that have saved her hair? Or does it depend? Like, are there ever times? So. Okay. And so she didn't do it on this because she wasn't thinking that she needed to do
and
that.
I feel like this wasn't like, oh, my mom woke up and her hair fell out. Like, I felt like
it wasn't like in one day. It's just over time.
Yes,
but she probably lived with the ojo all that time, and
the woman like projected that on her, whatever, and not knowing that she gave her ojo. Because my grandma wasn't there, so I don't know if the neighbor said something after, like months later, or I don't know how long later. Maybe she said something that's how my grandma knew, like, oh, it was her. So there's that. That's a true story.
Yeah. But so she said, so the neighbor, what did the neighbor say? So she said something to your mom in the moment.
No. I think she saw them, and I don't know if maybe
so it was like a thought.
Maybe later on, I don't know if it was days later, weeks later, maybe she saw my grandma and she was like, hey, I thought I saw, your husband. It was like, no, that was Lisa. Oh, she's like, because I saw the long, beautiful hair, and I think that's how my grandma was like, oh no, I bet you it was her.
This is what happened. But so what I'm wondering, because you said your grandma said that you don't get the ojo from just a look, from just looking at someone and being jealous. Like, she had to have said something.
But she was admiring the hair. She was no, because I've gotten ojo with someone.
So you don't have to say it. Yeah, so you could just be thinking it.
Right. But I mean, you can't give. So I'm talking about like giving somebody a dirty look. Like,
okay, so it's not just from a dirty look. But I guess that's what I meant. So when I give people looks, like, I'll be like, but so you don't have to say it out loud.
No, you don't. But you have to be admiring something. You can't be just like, oh, that girl, or like
them as a whole.
That girl. Yeah, like really looking at her hair.
their hair, and I'm like, God,
Yes.
why can't I have that? And my hair's falling out, so just saying. Okay, so what else you got?
So another story my grandma told me about that she learned from her mom. And of course, my grandma said she knew this and she still did it. So I think I mentioned to you about the whole being baptized thing with the Catholic Church. And my grandparents will make like different comments, like especially if there's a fussy baby or maybe the baby's having, issues or colicky or whatever. It's like, well, he hasn't been baptized. And I mean, I've heard my grandparents say comments like that. But so this happened to my aunt, not to take her to any body of water before she was baptized. Not to the beach, not to the pool, not, whatever. But they did before she was baptized. They end up going to the beach for some holiday. And yeah, like her face and her lips and like she was just not a good color. And so my great grandma ended up doing the egg on her. I asked her, I said, did you baptize, my aunt? And she's like, right away. She goes, she just got, one of her sisters and her husband, and got a priest.
Get in the car. We're getting a baptism.
Got her baptized, and I was like, was she fine after that? And she said, yeah, she was fine after that. But after that, she's like, we got to get her baptized, and so she got her baptized right away. So that's another, especially with babies. Like my grandparents definitely believe that with having issues with babies and stuff, them being fussy or sick all the time.
But so, and I'm curious, this is me not being very knowledgeable about my own life because I am in fact baptized, but like what do they do for babies when they baptize them? Like, so I don't know when you say that, but like we were talking about the prayer, so that's what I wonder with being baptized, like how, because they believe that it's like, okay, you can't touch a body of water before you're baptized, the oho, and is it like similar prayers that they say, or it's just in general like you have to be cleansed, like you have to go through the cleaning process for any of that to work, but to get rid of the bad energy, it's like you have to go through the steps. And like,
no, this is just a story of like how my grandparents believe about being baptized, like with babies. That's another, I guess it's just another, like, I don't even know if you want to call it a superstition, but just something else, with the ojo, the egg, this is just another something that they believe. And then my great grandma did the egg to find out about my aunt during this situation.
Right.
Because I guess
so it's like the egg can just tell you about the negative energy regardless of what it was caused by. If it was caused by another person, or if it was caused by not being baptized, but not haunted houses.
Not haunted houses, no.
Okay. I got it.
That's a whole, you need a priest, and you
need a priest for that. Like that's
But that's a whole other thing, that's what I was telling you with my friend. I'm like, I don't think you could do the egg on the whole house. Maybe you can. I don't know. I just know what I know.
That's why I'm just interested too in other people's like cultures and faiths and beliefs, and I tend to believe that it's all connected, even though it's all different, and you want to respect the differences of everybody. But I feel like it's just cool that you believe in something, like something higher than yourself that you believe in. That's amazing. That's great. Whatever it is, like it's cool to hear everybody's stories and what they do and how it's a little bit different, but it's still powerful. So that's what's interesting. So do you have any more stories?
Hold on, let me see. I like close it so I could see what you're
I'm really excited about the cards this time because they're coming. Like the second card is smacking us in the face right now that we're talking.
Oh, well, I wanted to tell you about the broom thing. When my grandma was telling me that her mom would do that, like it kind of like the same thing with the egg, like, but you use a broom. Oh, okay, so you do this and you're scared, like your child's scared, or I guess maybe
you smack him with a broom.
Just you hit him over the head. No, but this is what you do when you're scared or you have nightmares, like stuff like that. So this is for you.
Yeah, again, another thing I've been missing in my life that probably could have helped me a long time ago.
Right.
I'm getting my pen. Tell me all about it. I'm gonna write it down.
So my grandma was telling me that her mom would do this too, and like I told you, people would come to her mom, My grandma mentioned she did this to me one time, and I'm like, I don't think you were just beating me. Like, I don't know what. I don't remember you doing anything with a broom. So you do the same thing kind of with the egg, but with the broom. So you start sweeping the person to the side, sweeping it out, kind of like the egg, all the way to their feet. This time you are saying Our Father 3 times. And after that, you start, my grandma said that she remembers her mom like yelling. After the 3 Our Fathers, you're still sweeping this whole time, you would start yelling the person's name. So you would be like, Emmy, come back. Emmy, come back. Like real loud. Yeah.
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 Like, where did I go?
Yeah. So this is when you're scared, you have nightmares. And so you do this.
So if you know someone's having a nightmare and you're awake and you can see someone having a nightmare, you do
wake
this.
up scared, or maybe
so it's
you
like,
don't know.
come back.
Then my grandma said in the morning, you're supposed to drink either cinnamon tea or I put apple tea, but she said it in Spanish and she said manzanilla tea, which I'm a guess.
Okay.
Manzanilla is apple. That's what my grandma said you do afterwards, in the morning. And she called it, this is called something de susto. I know susto is scared, but it's curar. It's C-U-R-A-R.
Listeners, please help us say things in
I know.
Spanish too.
That's what my grandma called it. Like
it says cure in English.
Yes.
Okay, but I have questions on this. Do you remember your nightmare that happened?
I don't know. I didn't ask my grandma to. I was just asking her if she had any other like Hispanic like superstitions or like other stuff that is done. And she told me that story.
I mean, your version of, but we could go into the evil eye like it started back in ancient Egypt, and there's a relation to an amulet back then. And that's what I asked too, was there something you wear to help deflect the evil eye? Because I think in Egypt it was like the amulet protected you. I don't know if you wore it and it protected you from the eye again. But I pretty much just started doing the research and I was like, there is literally a different explanation of this from every culture. But
I guess what I'm wondering is the weird evil eye symbol that's everywhere. That's like trendy. Like just that. Because that seems weird to wear it or have it if like to us the ojo is bad. So why are these people
Why would you wear
trendy? Like, is it any comparison or does that evil eye represent something else?
Well, and to be honest, I didn't do enough research on that specifically because I was just researching like what is the evil eye and is it different from the ojo, different from culture to culture. But I think it does have something to do with wearing it to ward off evil. Like it's supposed to protect you. Wearing that
getting the evil eye
symbol, yes, it's supposed to protect you from evil spirits, bad luck, things like that. Basically, I researched that there's a lot of different cultures that have it. So I took kind of questions from the different evil eye things that I've seen, and then I worked them in through while you were telling your story. I was asking questions like, oh, well, what about this? Because I heard that from another culture, but I didn't know. I probably should have noted what I heard it from. But so like the red bracelet.
A different culture.
Where it's like you have to, like I'm even seeing right now, I just Googled it real quick, and they'll have a red bracelet with the blue eye on it. Blue bracelet. So it's different from culture to culture, and I didn't get specifics on each one. So,
and also like this isn't, I'm not saying that this is Mexican culture. I'm saying this is the version I knew. Maybe, actually in Mexico or they do it different. Or
be curious to ask Sylvia knows anything about this. But no, and that's why I said too, like this is your family's version of it. Because even I looked, like the first thing I started researching was mal de ojo versus the evil eye. To see like what's the difference, and it was just saying there's no difference. Like mal de ojo means it's like the evil eye.
Evil eye, yeah, that's what it translates to.
But there's different. Like I was reading, there's I feel like it was Mayan culture that did something with the red. It's like in Spain. There's something else. There's like all these different versions of what happens, and then yours is like what from like Texas, like.
Yes.
Texican version, like, but also just your family's, like what they've adapted and what they found works for them. No, for sure. It's one of those things. I mean, we could keep going. Like that was your story, and we could keep going and do more research on different things. But I think it'd be cool again to get listener stories and eventually hear, do other people relate to this? So let us know. Like, have you experienced this? Do you have a different version of this? We'd be interested to hear and compile research, and we can revisit. Like down the road, we can say Mal de Ojo Part 2 and dive deeper into it and more of the backstory and different cultures of it. So
right. Yes. Or we could be like listener stories of the evil eye. Because it could be different versions of.
Let's hear about all those rude people out here giving people ojo. Like, we need to find them. We need trackers on them and be like, stop these people.
So, Emmy, what did you think about everything?
This was an exciting episode. I love this. I love just chatting and getting to know your background. But no, it's just great. It's cool to see, again, just the different healing methods in the world. That it's like you can, like, we all think of the evil eye. And I may never have called it the evil eye. I know I never did. I'm never like, that person just gave me the evil eye. But I've seen some people where I'm like, got some evil eyes. And, it's a little different. Like you said, it's not about a stare, but there's something about energy that passes from person to person where it's like that person gave me a bad vibe.
Right.
Not only did they give me a bad vibe, like I went home with their bad vibe. Like I took on their energy and I brought it home with me. And to know that there's physical ways to heal this, it's cool. It's good. I like seeing it. I like hearing about it, knowing the different ways, even if it's not the way for me, because Catholic. I mean, I am Catholic, I guess. But even if it's not, like the exact ways, it's cool to hear pieces from it and be like, okay, well, I can make sure, like, next time someone compliments me, just be like, do you want to touch my hair? Like, oh, you like it? Okay. See how that goes. See if I feel better after. How are you feeling? How do you feel on sharing your story?
Good. I was excited to share it. I was excited to talk to my grandma and like actually learn step by step. And I never even like looked at the egg. Like my grandma would just be like, "Oh, this," and I'm like, "Grandma said," it's something my grandma does, and I believe in my grandma, and I believe in what she does. So I'm just like, I don't know how she does it. She's the grandma. Grandmas know all. Like that's it. The end.
That's enough
Grandma's
for you.
The boss.
That's cool that that's enough for you. Yeah.
So I never really like in depth paid attention to it. So it was fun to learn and ask her questions.
It's interesting that you didn't think to ask. You're just like, great, she knew, and you trust. See, I think that I'm a very much how stuff works kind of person. So I'm like, you tell me something. I mean, even learning tarot. It's like as soon as I knew about tarot and I saw my sister was pulling cards, but she's like, oh, I pulled this card and like, here's what this means. I'm like, how do you know what it means? She's like, oh, I read it. But then I'm like, okay, but how do you know? Like, how do you read like people who are fortune tellers? I'm like, but how do they know? And it's like, oh, well, you can just tell by the artwork on the card. And I'm like, well, I want to know, like, how do I learn? How do I do the artwork? Or it's like any kind of, and that's, I think, with the Ojo, I would have been like, from the start, I would have been like, what did you just say? I'd be like, tell me what you said. Like, how do I say it? How do I do it? But I think it's great that you're just like, no, like I just felt like that's just what my grandma does, and I respect her. And like you said, it's like grandma medicine. You're like, I trust her. I know what she's doing, and it's just like, it's what she does. Also, I don't need to know.
It's also because like I understand the need to know, but when it comes to this kind of stuff, it's like you have faith. Like that's
faith. Oh,
like you have, I have faith in my grandma, and I have faith in this
the prayer and God and
prayer, and yes, you have faith
healing.
In yes, and I mean a lot of it have to do with her too. I mean, she's my grandma. Like grandma's the boss.
Yeah, I feel like that's just like, I don't know. It's beautiful to be like, as much as we want to know and need to know, there's some things you just don't need to know. Like, just have faith that it's working, and that's the moral of the episode.
Yeah, have faith.
But that's
I always feel better afterwards.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking with my cards, though. Is like, I think I struggle sometimes to have faith, and so even I'll be pulling the cards, and I'm like, oh, I can't connect with God and spirit and a higher power and a message. Like, I can't. I don't know how people do that. So I'm like, I can read the card and I can look at the cookie cutter definition and I can see the artwork on it, but it's like the way, like when the message truly hits, it's like because you just had faith the
You don't
message was
overthink
coming
it.
through. Don't overthink it. Like, just believe, and then it comes to you.
Like the first cards that we drew with the first, where it looked like the saints, because it had Jesus and it had Mary and it had other stuff too.
Do you want me to tell you the cards that we pulled now? It's too bright too. I think it's better when I go over Oscar. Oscar like lights up the card. Isn't that weird?
Oscar's great. No, it's
Thank
not
you,
weird.
Oscar, like, it's not weird. It's Oscar. Have faith.
Oscar is the shit.
He's our guardian angel. We love him. Love his. Okay, so we got the 9 of Swords. Okay.
Oh, that looks creepy.
But when I first pulled it, I was like, I know what this is. This is Desiree getting her headaches when she has the ojo, because the person in the bed is like holding their head. But then they're laying in a bed and they're sitting up. So it's kind of like you're overthinking at night and can't sleep and sitting up, which reminds me of the broom thing too, where it's like,
yes, the nightmares,
the nightmares, the
oh my
plagued by the overthinking. Okay. Then this bad boy, which took me a minute, and then now that I got it, I'm like, let's go. This is the 5 of Pentacles, and you can tell that it's like a church window. Okay, so the pentacles are in the church window, and the people outside, they're walking through the snow. It looks, by the way, this is the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. Should be more specific, but they're struggling. Okay, like don't have shoes out in the snow. Like poor crippling, like struggling to get by. But there's like the church behind them kind of symbolizing the need for faith, I feel like. And in this episode and what we've been talking about, it's kind of like we have the overthinking that you can just bypass it and let it keep being negative and keep being a problem. But there is a way to have faith. Like I think the church is symbolizing the need for faith for sure in this. So I felt like it was just awesome when you said that at the end, the cards. I'm like, can we talk about the cards? They're screaming at me. So this is what we had, and I pulled these before we talked. So that was a new experiment. But it helped. It helped to bring in the message, because as we talked, I just sat them. I wasn't even looking at them. They were like stacked on top of each other in the corner. But I pulled them just to see. But they're kind of dark cards. So I was like, that's weird, because I'm really excited about this episode. And I felt like it was really fun. We were laughing. And
yeah, so you're like, why did these cards
so I'm like, why do we have the dark, more negative cards? But that's why I don't think of any of these cards as negative. I don't think of any of them as bad. I think that it's sometimes you have to go through the negative stuff to realize the good. And maybe, with the ojo, you have to get it to find your faith to overcome. And it helps you to overcome other things in your life, like having faith in the egg helps you to have faith in other things in life. So, moral of the story. The end.
I love that though. That's so crazy though. That you're like, why am I drawing these dark cards? This is gonna be a fun episode.
Yeah.
That's I tell you, these cards just amaze me every time.
Telling you. I feel good about these. Yeah. And I may do that next time. Pull them before and then see through the episode.
That's interesting. That blows my mind.
It's thrown you off that I did it.
Yeah. It did, because I'm like, no, I want whatever is listening to us. Like whatever. Like it's just a lot of questions. Yeah.
Well, I think either way, I think of it this way. I'm a human who is biased, and I am interpreting these cards based off of my experience. So I am pulling the card and I'm thinking, what did we just talk about? How can I relate this to what we just talked about? And the non-believers and the tarot skeptics, who I hope you're still listening, because we don't judge here, you can still listen. But the skeptical people would be like, whether you pulled it before or after, you are trying to relate what you see in the card to what you just talked about. And you could do that with anything. They say it about astrology too. It's like, oh, you could relate. Like you could say like, oh, you're going to have a great day and you're going to meet someone new. And it's like, yeah, well, most days you go out and you go to like Starbucks and you meet somebody new, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Like common things that it's like that could apply to anybody. Right. And so it's like you're not telling the future. And I'm not trying to tell the future. I'm not trying to say it. I want to just relate it to what we just talked about and to bring it together through artwork in a way that's different from just us talking. Like, I think it's just a good way to wrap up and to summarize your feelings and thoughts and ideas. And so, I'm still coming up with this from
Right.
what all we talked about. I pulled it before and I saw the 9 of Swords and I said, well, that's Desiree when she has a headache, when she gets the Oho, because I knew you said you get headaches. And that was before we talked. I just knew that fact. And then this
Right.
one, the 5 of Pentacles, I was like, I don't know what that means. I was like, Pentacles is like money and these people look poor and they're like walking through the snow. I'm like, oh God, here we go. We keep getting these like, but we're going to be poor cards.
But we're going to be poor.
But I didn't even think of church. And then, I didn't think the Oho was going to relate to church. I knew your grandma said some things, but I didn't know that related in any way to spirituality. Like, I guess I didn't think any of this really did. I just thought, I don't know. I didn't have thoughts. So
what were you thinking, or what did you do when you drew the cards? Because I know when we've talked and you drew cards, like, you'll like, what do we want to ask Spirit? And you'll ask, so what did you do this time?
Need to know about this episode today.
Okay.
And I just pulled before
we even discussed
so it was the same. I think that's kind of the same thing I've been asking every time. So even after, I'm like, what do we need to know about this episode that we just talked about? Or even when we didn't do an episode, when we just met, like, what do we need to know about our progress and where we're at? This time I was like, what do we need to know about this episode? And so I did that as like a before or after. But I do this for any of my tarot classes or even like the astrology meetings, any of the Zoom meetings I do with those people, I'll pull a card before. So there's a little bit of that when I pull before, but I do pull before a lot in those other classes. And I'm like, this is kind of the theme of the class. And it helps me to think about myself too and be like, what am I doing today? Do I back off? Do I not say so much today? Do I say more? Is this about me? Is this about someone else? Because sometimes in the cards, we know from the other episodes, I'd pull the cards and I'd be like, oh, this is about your relationship. Like, this isn't even about the Dead podcast.
Yes.
Like, I'm like, we're talking about boys.
Because we talked about so many
because we talked about it before or something.
just,
we're like, oh, this is about my work problems today. Yeah, it's not all business. It's something else. So, but I think that helps me too to get more because I'm slow. I'm not the type. There's some people. I mean, people on TikTok and Instagram, you'll see them. They'll pull cards and then immediately they're like, oh, I just heard. Let me listen and be like, okay, Spirit just told me blah 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 blah. That's not how my process is. Like, that doesn't work for me. It's like it comes through experience and seeing what did we talk about, and then I can relate it to that, or like the message is clearer in that way. Whatever you think. If it freaks you out, I can do it at the end too, or not do it every time. Yeah, this was a test.
That's
but
crazy.
But
they've all surprised me. But again, like, I don't. Like I've said, I don't know anything about tarot. I just go with whatever Emily says.
And I'm a baby witch, so I'm still, learning myself.
But it's been very, for me, it's been very interesting to know and see, freak out is not the right.
But does it make you uncomfortable?
Fascinating. No. It's been very fascinating every week when you pull cards, but how been pretty spot on with whatever we've discussed. And I just think that's like cool and like fascinating. And so no, it doesn't like freak me out or.
Well, that's like with your grandma when she says, oh, a guy gave you this. You don't get freaked out. Like, oh my God, how'd you know that? Your first thought is, oh, I know exactly who it was. Like, I know it was this dude. Like, because it's just a feeling. It's like an inner knowing and a feeling.
Yes.
That when someone says it, it clears it up in your mind and it's like, that makes perfect sense.
Yes.
And that's kind of what I use the cards for, is just to make, like, to clear up guidance in the moment. What's going on in your life? What do you need to know right now?
And we're back.
And we're back.
All right, guys. So that brings us to the end of this episode. Thanks for listening to the Dead Podcast. Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok at The Dead Podcast. Also, feel free to send in your stories, episode suggestions, or feedback at thedeadpodcast1@gmail.com. If you enjoyed our show, please rate and review us on whatever platform you're listening on, and be sure to come back next week for a discussion on Mexican folklore. Until then, this is Desi.
And this is Emmy.
And that's the end.
And this is the D.E.A.D podcast.